Well, I'm probably going to title this video something quite different from what I'm going to be starting out on. But, John F. Kennedy was a totally different president from any ones we had before him. Maybe Teddy Roosevelt was a little bit along his lines, but not even FDR was anywhere near as good as John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was a war hero, and he came in to be president by razor-thin margin, but he was a guy really for civil rights. He was not killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. That's not true. There was multiple assassins, one of them being E. Howard Hunt, a later Watergate burglar for Nixon. But it was also involved with LBJ. People are dissatisfied with what happened with lack of air support for the Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba, and a host of other things that John F. Kennedy did, that he was going to get us away from the Federal Reserve, bring us back to sound money, dismantle the CIA, the whole nine yards, right? But this was a different time back in 61 to 63, totally different. I remember it even though I was young, very, very young at the time. I still remember it. I still remember when he was assassinated. It was like darkness descended over America. And, he was a guy that was actually doing the right thing about bringing about civil rights movement. Now, what LBJ did later was a bunch of garbage. But, I'm leading on to something here. Maybe some people who are more conservative aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but later on, it looked like Martin Luther King. Well, he was going to endorse Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy probably would have been the next president in '64. But you know what happened to him? He was assassinated too, and Martin Luther King was assassinated. And they use these reasons, even though these people were not assassinated by a lone gunman. Like I doubt all this. I know there was a single gunman. But there was a plot behind everything. There was a plot behind everything. I know in the case of JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald didn't even pull the trigger. He was totally left out of it. There were several gunmen. But it was basically the powers that be knocking out the people that were going to be the leaders for civil rights, for the real people, for us the people. Maybe something like this can even happen with Trump. I don't know. It's something, I hope not, but I could see how they're slamming this guy left and right. I don't know if Trump is like a JFK or Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, whatever, but I know like Bobby Kennedy and JFK was president. Bobby Kennedy would have been president, especially backed by Martin Luther King, and they just whacked all of them, right? Now, I want to tell you things that was going on back in the '60s. A lot of people don't remember. I remember very well. There was major civil strife going on, civil unrest. Well, I remember even when I was back in California, I think it was in '93 when they had the Watts riots. Actually, I was down in Watts the next Sunday, but it was early in the morning. I guess everybody was hungover. It was pretty peaceful, and I guess nobody was out in the streets. It was right after me and somebody else in the Marine Corps. And we were down here riding our motorcycles around in Watts, but it was like early in the morning on Sunday, and no problem because I guess everybody was all burned out from the night before. It's like 2 days after the riots and stuff. But, there's always been things going on with the cops. Now, I don't want to knock the police because it's like, it's a mixed bag. But, the police are not even like the total bad guys. Sometimes you see them as the bad guys. And, yeah, there are some guys that are in the police that are bad guys. But, they are the extension, the force behind the political power, the ones that run the towns, the ones that run the cities, really, right? And they're told to do things, and yeah, they do them because they follow orders, right? Now, during the times in the '60s, man, you probably can't imagine what was going on. I mean, yeah, I was pretty young back then, but I remember I remember even hitchhiking. It was right after, I guess it was about '69, '70, hitchhiking down in Newark, New Jersey, and and white guy going down there and stuff, walking around and shit, Valesburg and Third Ward and all that shit. But I don't know, it wasn't like as crazy as you think all the time. It wasn't like, the news would always exaggerate stuff. But yeah, shit was going on all the time. But the thing is that people that fought back against it, some of the times the police were getting really crazy, man. They were killing people. They really were. So you know what happened? You had Black Panthers started forming up, and it was like, hey man, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight. This is war. That's what was going on. This is when, and don't let them fucking fool you, because I know like some black people think like the NRA is a white organization. Now I'm not too keen on the NRA all the way because I think they compromise a lot, and I know they don't push like it's white or black or anything. But I'm going to tell you right now, the ones that are looking to control you, they passed these gun laws specifically against minorities and blacks in particular because of what was going on in the 60s with civil rights. They used the excuse of the assassination of JFK, Bobby Kennedy, and Martin Luther King as a reason to pass the Gun Control Act in 1968. But that was not really what the hell the reason was. It was to control blacks more than anybody. Now, back earlier than that, they were using it to control like Italians and Jews and Irish, like at the turn of this century. There was other laws that came into being, like the Sullivan Law, like when I put it out in another video. But I'm going to tell you some more of this shit from a different angle. Blacks were fighting back against this bullshit. And so what happened was, they're telling you, oh, yeah, we got to make the streets safe and all this. We see if one cop gets killed, it's like everybody's guns got to be registered. That's what they do in New Jersey. So, you know what they did? They basically, in 1966, they installed martial law in New Jersey, in particular because of civil rights riots that were going on. And they've installed martial law against everybody, whether they're black, white, red, Chinese, whatever. You know what I mean? They did it against everybody. You got to get fingerprints, references. You got to go to the police station, mental health check, background check, all this other shit, just to get a goddamn gun in New Jersey, even if it's just like a plain old shotgun or some shit. And you can't even, drive someplace with the damn thing unless you go on a shooting range or you go on a gunsmith or some shit, because you'll get slammed for that shit. You got to leave it in your house. You can't have a gun on you to protect yourself if you're in danger in this area. That's just New Jersey, right? But they did this because they really initiated this, and this is what I want to get down and, with black people in New Jersey to understand this, and New York, that they did this because of the civil rights movement. They didn't do this because some white supremacist shit. No, they did it because of the civil rights movement. Black people were fighting for their rights, and when cops were fighting back and they were overdoing it and killing black people started arming themselves, and shit escalated. So that's when they passed the gun law in New Jersey with the firearms ID card, fingerprints, and all that shit. Go to the police station, pay a fee, get references, mental health background check, and all this other shit, and everything's registered. They did that in '66 only because of the civil rights movement. That's all it was about, man. And, you got all these liberal shitheads, they call them liberal shitheads up in New Jersey. They're telling you, like, oh, man, we're just doing this, because, we're here to protect the minorities. No, they're doing it against the minorities, man. All these liberal guys that are freaking pushing for this gun control shit, they hate minorities, man. They're talking one way and they're doing something else. It's kind of like the same thing the white man did with the Native American Indian, right? They tell you one thing, but they do something else. They do something completely different. Black people getting the wool pulled over their eyes, especially in freaking New Jersey, New York. So I want to bring this out because, the civil rights movement actually was, let me just put it this way. Civil rights movement was a good thing in this country, but they had problems where certain parts of it and certain things got co-opted by, like, communist KGB elements and just to stir up shit. But basically it was, what it should have been, it should have happened, but there was other things that were going on that were making it so it wasn't a civil rights movement. It was sort of like a communist socialist shit too. I mean, and that's the thing that turned off a lot of white people about it too, because they realized there was some other things going on besides addressing black grievances. There was other opportunist shitheads going in there just looking for some money, and usually these are white politicians doing that just to grab the attention and like, oh, stop the violence, so register all the guns and shit like that. But in the meantime, that makes everybody a goddamn slave, and I mean everybody. Don't matter if you're white, black, yellow, American Indian, whatever the hell you are. It doesn't matter what the hell you are. I mean, it makes you all the freaking, like, part of the freaking martial law of New Jersey, New York. Don't let these jackasses in New Jersey, New York try to tell you, we need gun control, more of this shit to fucking make our streets safe. You know what? We can make our own streets safe, And you know what? Anybody can freaking make a gun if they're a damn machinist. That's another thing. You don't even need a gun. You can make a bow. You can make a pipe. You can make a freaking, I don't know, freaking flamethrower, for crying out loud. It's not that hard to do any of that shit. And, if you want to freaking screw somebody up, you can screw somebody up even without a gun, right? You got martial arts. But you know how the deal is, usually it's like the people that don't have into all this, martial arts and, making freaking flamethrowers and shit like that and making, big pipes and stuff. They're the ones that need a gun because, they're smaller. They're not as big in size, so maybe they need a gun, Like this dude in the middle, he's pretty short, He might need a gun, right? That's how I look at it, right? So that's the way it is. It equalizes all the shit, right? But, they don't like it equalized when you equalize it with the cops, too, because, say, for instance, the cops start shooting at a bunch of black people, and because they're marching in the streets about civil rights, and they got their signs up, and they're saying, hey, we need this, we need that, you guys are screwing us, we got these apartments over here, and there's no heat in the wintertime, and the water ain't working, and they got your signs up, and the cops shoot at your ass, because maybe somebody threw a stone. Yeah, you can shoot back. Well, you can probably shoot. Well, I don't want to say anything on here because, you know what I mean, right? So you fight back, but they don't want you to be able to fight back. That's the deal. Now, I'm going to tell you something, man, because, we got the police state coming down, and I think the police state's going to come down most severe in New Jersey, New York, more than anywhere, because, well, I ain't sure if there's going to be a financial collapse. I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, I could pretty much read more or less by which way the election's going to go. Now, I think the election's rigged in favor of Hillary. I can already see the damn polls coming out saying, for the bitch. But let me put it this way. Say Trump won. If Trump won the damn election, they'd pull the plug on the economy, man. It'd be like, watching, Drano work on a sink, when they pour Drano in there, liquid plumber, and all of a sudden you're wondering what's going on. There goes the economy, right down the shitter. And, they'll do that just to get the guy out of power. But, if they have something like that happen, there's going to be major problems within government, people getting paid for, like, subsistence checks and, subsistence checks, like foods, and also housing allowances and shit like that. A lot of that stuff might, have problems for payments going out. If the government starts to default and all this kind of shit, it might happen. I think they'll pull the plug on every damn thing if Trump gets in there just so they get, enough people pissed off in general at the economic outlook, so to vote him out for the next time so he's a one-term president. But in the meantime, when that happens, there's going to be a lot of civil unrest. And you know what? The powers that be, I'm going to put it down really hard on the minorities. And I'm talking about the liberal shitheads because, a lot of these liberal shitheads, man, they're nothing but a bunch of opportunists. They talk real freaking sweet and shit like that. Now, I mean, I'm not somebody who, like, freaking hangs around black people 110% all the time or anything like that. But I get along with black people, you know what I mean? I'm kind of like everybody else. Birds of a feather stick together. Blacks kind of generally stick with blacks, and whites kind of stick with black. Whites kind of, Italians kind of stick. Well, whites are Italians, but so you're Italian, you kind of stick with Italian. If you're, if you're French, you're from Quebec. You speak of Quebec. You kind of stick with that because you know what I mean. It's kind of like a cultural thing. But, there's a lot of overlap. If there's black from up New Jersey, maybe I'll stick up with them, versus some white guy from, I don't know, Minnesota, you know what I mean? But, like, it's not even that freaking, color issue shit. But you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times, even though, people don't exactly freaking get all super integrated all over the place, a lot of people understand that, hey, we know what the deal is. Everybody's got their own, needs their own respect. Everybody needs their own space, right? Now, I'm going to tell you about these two imposters over here, Hillary and Obama. Obama is a guy that was never born in the USA, of course. I know they say, yeah, he was born in freaking Hawaii, but, his birth certificate says his race is black. Well, you know what? Yeah, that's the term they use in the modern days, like from the 80s on. But back in 61, if you look at every freaking birth certificate way back when in Hawaii, they said Negro. They didn't say black. It wasn't like a bad word. You know, it was the word they used, right? Like Negro, Caucasian, right? It was a fake. That's why the guys that faked it, they put the wrong word in there besides screwing up the way the letters are and shit. The guy was born in Kenya. Now you can say, well, yeah, that's illegal. You shouldn't be a Kenya. You shouldn't be a president because of that. And I'm thinking, well, that ain't really the worst thing in the world, even though he pulled a scam there, right? The worst thing in the world is this: he has no black lineage to American black. He's got no lineage back to the slave times in the United States. What he does have lineage to is Muslim slave traders, his ancestors. He's a Muslim. He's from Indonesia. His nanny was a tranny, you know. His nanny, the ones his parents hired, she's a tranny, you know. So it kind of tells you some other shit. Uh, Way back when he was a kid, he was being raised by a tranny. And not by his mom wasn't a tranny, but the one they hired to watch him. And which was kind of freaky back in Indonesia, man, believe me. But the other thing is, the guy has never really been in America, growing up in America. He doesn't know shit about America. I mean, he's in Indonesia, he's in Kenya, he's in Hawaii. Like, Hawaii's America, but it's kind of like not America in a way. It is and it isn't. But even so, you know, he's got no lineage going back to American black. He's got his ancestors were Kenyan Muslim slave traders. They were black Muslim slave traders. They used to gather up the blacks in Africa, enslave them, and sell them to the white slave ships that brought them over to the USA and Central America and shit, and Jamaica and all that. That's why they got him. That's why he's in with the white boys, man. He's worse than Uncle Tom, man. Way worse. Now, Hilda Beast, man, she's a racist bitch from frickin' hell. She's somebody that thinks blacks are animals or some shit. She said something to that effect or something like that way back when. And you know what? She plays the game any way she wants to get her money and her votes. She hates her husband. She knows he's a rapist. And she plays along with it because it's good for her political power. She got where she is mainly off the strings of old Bill. She defends rapists. She takes money from freaking Saudi Arabia, who is, giving her money on through the Clinton Foundation, the tax-free foundation. And Saudi Arabia doesn't allow women to freaking drive. They punish if a woman gets raped. She complains about it. They punish her. This is Hillary, you know. And Warren Buffett is backing Hillary all the way. He said it years ago. She'd be the next president. She might be, because the shit's probably rigged. She's major into gun control. She wants to take all the guns away. You know why she wants to do that? She can get rid of all the minorities, man. Along with Uncle Tom Obama here. Now, if you think I'm full of shit, I'm sorry if you think I'm full of shit, okay? And if somebody from the UK does a thumbs down and all my videos practically, and you know what, you asshole from the UK, stick a crumpet up your ass sideways, and I'm thinking, get sick of your shit, but just saying, I already know it's one of you assholes. Now, it's not the only one, but there's always one. There's a shithead from UK trolling around. But anyway, the one that actually put Obama in power was this Valerie Jarrett. You know, the thing in the pink over here? She's the attorney from Chicago that actually introduced Obama around the area and got them all hooked up in the inside crowd. And, you know, Soros later backed him up. She's actually the one that pulls the strings on him all the way. You think Obama's actually pulling all the strings? Nah. She is. She's got way more influence. They called her, and I'm talking about not per the Republicans. See, when you guys think you freaking, I'm talking even black people here, man. You think we voted for a black president? Yeah, shit, you didn't vote for a black president. First off, you voted for a guy that was sold out your ancestors to this country. That's what you voted for. But besides that, and I'm telling you, I knew this years ago from Democrats, this bitch, Valerie Jarrett, was from Democrats on the inside. They said she was the de facto president. She tells Obama what to do. She's got ties to Iran and all that kind of shit like that, and whatever. So I'm giving it to you straight, man, because I'm not, I'm not on the side of the establishment at all. I'm going to tell you that right now. And you know what? Unfortunately, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this because it's like busting your bubble. I know it's the first time you had a black president, right? You know what? The elite are fucking with the blacks. They are. I'm just putting it in plain language. This Michelle in blue here is actually Michael. I mean, even Obama calls her Michael. She's a dude, man. I didn't think so at first either, but I saw the stuff on YouTube with all the body dimensions. I saw her pump out the 25 push-ups with Ellen DeGeneres like nothing. She doesn't look too much like a dude in some ways, but then if you really like put her against somebody, it's not like she's just a big chick. She's just too many markers. Like some chicks got some big shoulders, some chicks might have some bigger hands, some chicks might be tall, but she's got too many markers. And there's a lot of shit. If you don't want to believe it, but you know what? It's not like I am knocking somebody who's a black president and a black, first lady. What I'm coming from is I'm telling you, and I'm really addressing this at black people. This bitch was put in here in Obama to screw you people up. He set the black people up by putting these Obamas, Barack and Michelle in there. They set the black people up. Want to hate my guts for saying that? I'm sorry. I'm really saying it because I'm on your side for freaking saying this shit. I'm not putting it out here like trying to, say something bad against, the first black president. I'm saying it because the white elite jackasses got this guy for a reason because he's worse than Uncle Tom. And they're screwing with you by just playing this game with this Michelle crap because it's a dude, man. It's a dude. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of hot black chicks out there, man. I mean, I'm not saying she's not, and even Michelle is a tranny. She looks pretty damn good compared to, like, Barbara Bush. But Barbara Bush, you could see she's a woman, you know what I mean? Even though she's not too good looking, for sure. But, I'm being bluntly honest on here, and I'm being so damn honest. YouTube's going to love me for freaking putting this shit out here. But I'm telling you the flat-out truth. But what I'm saying is Hillary is going to take away all the guns as best she possibly can for one reason. The same damn reason they came up with the National Gun Control Act in 1968 and also that New Jersey Sill Gun Control Act of 66, the Sill Gun Law, they call it SILL, New Jersey with the freaking ID cards. It's to freaking disarm the blacks, man. That's what they wanted it for. Now, I wish there could be like peace and love and everybody love each other and shit like that. And I know like blacks do commit more crimes. I know these white conservative assholes are going to be jumping all over me on this video saying, what's the fucking matter with you? Don't you recognize that blacks commit more crimes? Yeah, I know they do, alright? But, be that as it may, I say, don't shoot me, fucker. I'd rather have these black people have the guns than the cops. You know what I mean? That's why I look at it. And, I know when you're getting screwed over, man, how much are you going to freaking take? How much are you going to take? I mean, that's where the Black Panthers came into being, right? So, I'm putting this out from another angle. I don't know, YouTube, don't get pissed off at me, man. This is advertiser-friendly video, whatever. I'll get, 10 cents off it or some shit. But, come on. Hey, come on, give me a break on this shit. But, and, I'm telling the truth on a deal, And, Bobby Kennedy would have been a great president, too. They had to get rid of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy. Because, you know what? They're real leaders for the people. Bill Clinton ain't, man. Bill Clinton, the only thing he ever did was shake freaking JFK's hand, man. That's all he ever did. He shook his hand, and somehow that makes him think like he's like JFK. No way, baby. No way. Bill Clinton was a damn draft dodger running up to Canada. He was a guy that was freaking running away from shirking his responsibilities in the military. And, and also, undermining anything we did. I mean, yeah, the Vietnam War wasn't perfect, but, anytime you're the guy that freaking organized all the protests against the USA like Bill Clinton did, he was the organizer. He wasn't just a protester one of the rank and file. He was an organizer. And a main organizer always has a KGB handler. Now, Bill Clinton, the draft dodger in chief, has nothing in common with JFK. The guy, JFK, John F. Kennedy, the one that was the lieutenant in World War II, It was cutting whose boat, the PT-109, was cut in half by the Japanese destroyer, and he rescued the crewmen and stuff. Got him on the island. They ate some coconuts, and he rode on a coconut and had to swim to another island, and they finally picked him up and shit. And he hurt his back really bad. That's why JFK was always sitting in a rocking chair all the time, because his back was hurting. Yeah, they killed him, man. They killed him because he was for the people. And JFK would have never, So when the people were fighting back, it wasn't just the black people were fighting back in the 60s. That was the hippie movement. That was the whole counterculture that was going on. And it was about, people looking for getting rid of some of the bullshit that was going on. I know not everything that was in counterculture was good, but, not everything in the black movement was good too, right? But by and large, it was good, because it was like recognizing, what the hell is this country really for? It's about freedom, man. It's about individual rights. It's not about freaking us worshiping the freaking dictatorship government. But you know what happened? As soon as people started fighting back, as soon as people freaking started protesting, the cops came in there really heavy-handed. And, they started wailing on people, screwing them up. And, when they got in jail, they used to beat the shit out of them, drug them up with psychotropic drugs to screw their brains up and shit like that. Oh, they were doing that to these blacks left and right, man. Once they got them behind closed doors, they were doing all kinds of shit. So, that's where the blacks started arming themselves. And once the blacks started arming themselves and a white officer got killed, well, they came down and they says, we got to control all this shit. They weren't just talking about, a crime someplace. They were talking about controlling the blacks, specifically fighting for civil rights. So gun control is actually against civil rights. And you know what? If you really want to think about it, when you got a gun in your hand, that means you want to preserve your life. And, that means you want to have the right to just exist. That means you don't want to get trampled by the man. That's what that means. That's what that means, right? And, you have to be an idiot not to think like that, man. You always want to preserve your life. You want to live. You want to exist. You don't want to be hampered, downtrodden. You don't want to be freaking channeled into some kind of bullshit or anything like that. That's what it's about. That's what it's about all the way. So, the people on the top don't want that. They want to control you. They want to herd you. They want to own you like slaves. This is like, we got a new kind of slavery, man. We got a freaking kind of, Johnson's Great Society. Basically, that shit's like a global plantation. That's what the hell that shit is. I mean, it's the USA National Plantation. So instead of freaking living out on the freaking plantation, now you freaking you get some assistance from the damn government, but you know what? You're still not free. You're only free when you got a gun. You're only free when you got a gun. That's what it is. So, I don't know. Going on a rant over here, but you know what? I can tell you, I'm telling you the truth all the way. These liberals are against, they're not liberals, man. I hate using that word, man. These guys that are white, that are fucking liberals, they're not liberals, man. They're not liberals at all. And Obama is a damn commie bastard, just like the rest of the freaking fake-ass pieces of shit out there, including Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton actually worse, though, man. I tell you that right now. Worse than Obama. Take away all your damn rights. So I just want to tell, I don't know what the hell I'm going to title this video, more or less, but you know what? I can tell you right now, I'm putting it out because right now I realize they're setting up this election, and I ain't too sure about Donald Trump. I ain't like 110% on this guy's side. But when you got pieces of shit like Romney saying that Trump's election will lead to trickle-down racism, and I'm thinking, Romney, you're a big fucking racist. What are you talking about, you asshole? I remember Romney one time was being addressed by a guy on a wheelchair that said he wanted some medicinal marijuana for his cancer, and Romney's like, "Oh, fuck you," Romney don't give a shit, right? So anyway, yeah, and I agree. Here you got the black man standing off the National Guard. I mean, this whole thing was a bunch of bullshit in the '60s. It really didn't do no good. Personally, that's why I don't live in New Jersey anymore. But anybody, that's what's going on too. Actually, New Jersey, a lot of people moving out. Actually, they got an exit tax. If you got freaking, you sell your house, they want to make sure you pay your sales tax in your house or some shit, or they come after you. You got to pay a tax if you leave New Jersey. People leave New Jersey and shit like that. But where the hell you go, man? The shit's spreading like a cancer everywhere. And, it wasn't like a perfect time back then, but, they were fixing, things were getting a little bit better. a little bit better. But most of these white politicians are a bunch of posers. And any white politician that says it's for more gun control, that means they hate minorities. That's what it comes down to, man. That's what it really is. I mean, you know, the ones who were before, they used to be for gun control left and right? KKK. KKK were for gun control too. Why? Because they didn't want the blacks to have guns. Why they freaking institute all these gun control laws in New York and New Jersey, especially in the 60s and 68? Because of the civil rights movement. Don't let them fool you, man. Because you know what? Everybody's forgetting that element. Everybody's forgetting that element. The black man especially was fighting back. Now, I know the black man doesn't do all this wonderful shit. There's a lot of crime, a lot of black on black crime left and right. But, you know, it's like, shit like that happens, man. I mean, shit like that happens because, you know, when you get squeezed too much by bullshit from 50 different angles, and yeah, there is racism against black people, okay? That's what the hell it is. But right now, I kind of feel like the racism is coming from these bullshit, asshole, freaking elitists on the top that are telling us a bunch of sweet things, and they don't mean what they say, man. What they're doing is when they're restricting firearms ownership, they want only these guys like here marching down the street in gulag freaking uniforms. They want them to have the guns. They don't want you to have the guns because they want them to be ordered by the elite. You know, they want these guys to do the will of what they, you know, the power guys want, and that's it. And they don't want nobody fighting back. It's the same kind of shit that happened with Big Tim Sullivan, Tammany Hall, when he passed the Sullivan Act and he disarmed, you know, people from walking around with like brass knuckles, knives, and, you know, lead bags or some shit, and pistols. Especially like he disarmed like the Italians, Jews, and the freaking Irish back then at the turn of the century. 68, they want to disarm the blacks. 2016, Hillary gets in. She wants to disarm everybody because we're all screwed. So united we freaking stand, divided we fall. And I'm talking about united we stand, black, white, American. And you know what? I'm really hot on this issue with American Native Indians, man, because yeah, I know a lot of people got raw shake, including white people, and came here to immigrant. It don't even matter. Everybody, this country wasn't that easy to live in. But the ones that really got screwed the most, in my opinion, is the American Native Indians. And that's just my opinion. But anyway, so just want to just keep in mind that these jackasses that talk about, you know, civil rights and keeping the streets safe, and they want gun control, what they really want is they want to own your ass. Screw them. Screw them.